Hello, everybody. This is Don Markland with Accountability Now, and welcome to the Morning Jolt, where we give you small tidbits of data, information, and inspiration to make better decisions today. It's a tactical podcast about making today better today. I want to tell you a story about one of my old best friends. His name was Sam. I worked with him nearly 10 years ago. Sam was 6'3", tall, good-looking. He was a former Marine, fit as could be. This guy commanded attention. I mean, it was insane. Wherever he went, people instantly respected him, listened to him, followed him. It was unbelievable. And for a while, I really struggled with this because I thought the reason people followed him were due to his physical advantages and attributes. And those were things that I just didn't have control over. I thought it was unfair. And I was resentful of that or those disadvantages. And then I realized, especially after going through my program, the 4 C's of accountability, that was ridiculous thinking. And everything is really within my control. So I started to relook at the problem and look for solutions instead of complaints, and find ways that I could develop my own sense of executive presence. And that's when I learned there were 4 things, really 4 essences of executive presence that I could develop and work on and improve my way of being a better executive. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The 4 things you could do today to have better executive presence in your business and in your life. First, if you want to have better executive presence, I want you to ask better questions. Lisa Lai from Harvard Business Review, she said, the bottom line, being a strategic leader is about asking the right questions and driving the right dialogue from those around you or from your team. Better questions increase your executive presence because it makes people think and therefore act differently. This doesn't mean you need to be the executive to ask the questions. Anyone can do it. In your life, you should have a love-hate relationship with your boss or mentor or executive, not because they're rude or cruel to you, but because they ask questions of you that make you feel uncomfortable, that make you rethink things or look at things in some different way. This is part of having executive presence. Having the state of mind and willingness to ask questions to people that cause them to act differently, make them uncomfortable. Now, there's a note here that there is a way and a tact to ask these questions. Because you're trying to make people uncomfortable, it does not give you permission to be rude or to ask things in a mean way. This is something I've written about on Forbes and put in other podcasts, that a bully boss is not great. You don't get to treat people poorly just because you're trying to ask, quote, tough questions. You have to ask them tactfully. But tough questions are invaluable to the business. I work right now, I'm involved with about 3 businesses on a regular basis. And in one of the businesses, there's one individual, he is known to ask tough questions. And a lot of people don't like those tough questions, especially when they're on the receiving end of it. But I love that he asks these tough questions because it makes people sweat. It makes them think and change their behaviors. It is so great for the business. If you want to develop your executive presence, ask better questions. You could start that today. Second tip, be data-centric. Too many times we focus on just the wins. We celebrate, we break our wrist, patting ourselves on the back, being so happy by what we did. As we learn in the 4 C's of accountability, the first C is critique success, which is all about the idea that you should look at your successes as repeatable behaviors and look at the data behind it so you can do it again, rather than celebrate what you did. So look at the numbers and measurements of your success and critique it. Always go to the data. Always go to the numbers. What drove your success? don't sit there and celebrate it. Now, I'm the worst at this. I'm a salesperson at heart, and I get really excited by wins and really encouraging. You have to check yourself, calm down, and focus on the numbers and focus on the data. Be data-centric. You'll be a better executive. You'll have better executive presence. Third thing, use body language. It's more about power poses and confidence, but let me explain. And this is going to get a little scientific here, so stay with me. I want to talk to you about cortisol. Cortisol is, it's what our body and brains is like an alarm system in your body. And I'm actually not the one coining this phrase. There's a doctor named Amy Cuddy. She wrote about this in her book, Presence. It's a brilliant book. Cortisol is that substance that drives that fight or flight system in your brain that you all know about. When you're in these threatening situations, it's also what pushes us to be more competitive or have those highs and lows of self-esteem, confidence, lack of focus, even sadness. It all comes from cortisol. It's vital. And so what if I told you that your body language, it's not so much about what it does for other people. It is about that. But it's also about what you're telling yourself. Dr. Cuddy's research is shown when you're making power poses, when your posture is up, when you're standing tall, you're actually telling yourself, I'm a better executive. I'm in control. I'm happy. When you're smiling, when your shoulders are back, you're internally telling yourself, I am in charge. She did a study where she had two groups of individuals. Group 1 was doing weaker poses and Group 2 was doing power poses. And then she tested their cortisol levels, and the power pose group had higher levels. I'm telling you, by just fixing your postures, by just focusing on how you stand and walk, by just smiling, you will feel like a better executive. You will stand stronger. You will act stronger. So use better posture and you will have a better executive presence, not just for the people around you, but for yourself. Last tip, be calm. Be still. Calm is the foundation of presence. Joshua Urich of Harvard Business Review suggests that calmness is actually the foundation of executive presence. And one of my favorite examples of this comes from our own U.S. history with Abraham Lincoln. As Harvard Business Review writes, in a crisis, it's important to take a deep breath and remain as calm as possible, especially as the stakes rise or as circumstance turbulence accelerates. Let me give you an example. Pulitzer Prize winning historian Doris Kearns Goodwin, she writes about Lincoln, stating, in his everyday interactions with the team, there was no room for mean-spirited behavior, for grudges or personal resentments. He welcomed arguments and debates. She talks about this. She wanted the team to have conflict, but she did not, and he did not want panic. There was no 24-hour news cycle under Lincoln. There was no Twitter feed. There was no Fox News or MSNBC. There was none of that. But he was bombarded with pressure, and he understood that when pressure arose, it was important to be calm, collected, and make effective decisions. It doesn't mean you don't have to be urgent. It doesn't mean you don't take action, but it does mean you're deliberate, you're patient, you're long-suffering. You just aren't reckless. 4 tips. Ask better questions. Be data-centric. Use body language and be calm. These are things you can do today. As you attack your day today, pick one of these items. Don't do all 4. Don't be crazy. Just pick one and start to develop it. And be the executive you know you can be. If you want more content, please first like or subscribe to this podcast on Apple or Spotify. You can follow me on Forbes. You can follow me on Twitter at Don Markland or Instagram, executivecoach.don. You can go to my website, accountabilitynow.net. As always, check out my company, the greatest digital marketing agency in the world, 411 Locals. And folks, this is your morning jolt.